Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Across the Curriculum Conference. This is Internationalization of the Curriculum, Theory and Practice with Amy Accord, a government instructor here at Alvin Community College. I have begun the recording for this session. I'll be monitoring the chat as well as if anyone has any questions and raising their hand. And with that, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to be my video is going to be remain muted today because unfortunately, teaching at several different campuses, including high school campuses and TDCJ, it was, as many of us know, bugs. You end up catching a bug sometimes. So I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'll have my video remain muted, but you don't need to see me for this presentation anyways. All right, so let's get started. So this is internationalizing the curriculum, and this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm super excited to be able to present this to my colleagues today. So let's get started. So kind of what the objectives for this morning are. We're going to look at what is internationalization of the curriculum. Why do it? Why internationalize your curriculum? How to do it, and then I'll give some examples of it from a couple of my classes, and then we can brainstorm global curriculum elements for your own classes. I'm hoping not to get too bogged down in a bunch of the theory and stuff like that. We're going to talk about that briefly. But what I really want to talk about is how to do all of these things, how to enact or implement internationalizing your curriculum in your class. So what is it? What is internationalizing or internationalization of the curriculum? So according to Lease, it's internationalization of the curriculum is the incorporation of international, intercultural, and global dimensions into the content of the curriculum, as well as the learning outcomes, assessment tasks, teaching, and support services of a program of study. So that's pretty broad. So let's look at how that fits in with broader programs that you see in institutions of higher education. So it's part of international education, part of a broader international programming that you see in higher ed, such as study abroad programs, multicultural events on campuses where you may have various different festivals. You may highlight certain countries, certain regions of the world, those types of things, different types of cultural events for those countries themselves. International student recruitment is part of international education. Student life organizations such as Model United Nations, various different language clubs that you may have on campus, or international student organizations. And then there's course curriculum. There's a bunch more. There's so much more that goes into international programming than these elements. But course curriculum is part of that. And specifically adding elements of international or global concepts in your specific curriculum for your class as the instructor. Here's some IOC literature. That's kind of the abbreviated form of what we're going to be talking about. Internationalizing the Curriculum by Betty Leese is kind of the one of the main texts, and she's one of the gurus of this topic. We even have, it's been written about for community colleges, ourselves. So international education at community colleges, themes, practices, and case studies. These are all books that I have and have drawn on heavily throughout the course of my career. Internationalizing the curriculum in higher education and international higher ed. This is a handbook, and there's so much more. This is just a very, very brief collection of books on internationalizing the curriculum in higher ed. There are specific texts for the for all the different disciplines. So a lot of disciplines that you wouldn't even think would want to include elements of or global perspectives, global content in their classes. There's information out there for you. If you would like some assistance finding that, I'm happy to help you with that. But it's actually quite easy. There's a ton of information out there. You can just Google internationalizing the curriculum of psychology or sociology or accounting. There's so much out there that there's just an amazing amount of resources. Okay, so why do this? Why internationalize your course curriculum? This sounds like, oh, well, man, that's like more stuff that I have to add to my class. I've already got a packed class. I've got so much curriculum that I have to deliver already, so much content, so many concepts that I have to deal with currently. How am I going to get all of this in? So obviously there's some issues of time there. Um, my student, why would my students want to know something like this in a class that has nothing to do with international information or international ideas? Well, the reality is, in today's job market, it is a competitive global job market, and I'm sure all of us understand that. Our students are going to go on to work in companies where it is highly likely that they will have international clients. It will be highly likely that they're in a global supply chain somehow, as far as the inputs into their business. They will likely be working with people from various different backgrounds, whether that be people here in the United States, from different countries around the world, different countries and different regions around the world, or they may in fact be working with their counterparts in other countries. And we all know now that since the pandemic, it's gotten even easier to do this, and even expected that this is going to happen, in which is kind of nice at the same time, because although a lot of folks had to turn to virtual meetings over the last several years, it also made it easier to do that, to where it became where it was you would see employees, not in the higher echelons of the company, that were excluded from being able to interact with their counterparts overseas due to travel, right? Due to the cost of travel. Well, now it's becoming more standard for companies and their employees to be having conferences across the globe on a daily basis. Markets, obviously, if a if you're a company, you want to be able to exploit various different types of markets across the world. This just makes good sense for business, and our students need to have some type of awareness of the world, and how different markets that there are actually different markets out there. I remember one time, I was, as an undergrad, I was taking an internet and a marketing class, and this is quite some time ago, back in the early 90s, and my marketing professor was talking about international marketing. And at the time, in the 90s, he was talking about South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and many of the other Asian countries, and the importance of tapping into markets there, not just them tapping into our markets. And there were a few students in that classroom that just didn't understand why they were going to why they were even talking about any other country and doing marketing in any other country than the United States, because they only saw their future jobs here in the United States. They hadn't quite made that connection yet. So it's really important to help our students be able to make those connections globally. So that's great. That's economic stuff. That's jobs. That's wonderful. But also, including international or global concepts in your class helps create responsible citizens. The ability helps us be able to, and our students help to be able to understand complex global issues, to understand U.S. foreign policy, to understand economic policy, as it not just here in the United States, but how our economies are are connected across the globe. And you can do that in your classes. These are just variety, very limited examples here, but they're all different ways in your classes that you can help our students become uh, um, essentially fluent in global competencies. And we're going to learn about ways that we can do that today. Okay. All right, so benefits of, today we're focusing specifically on internationalizing curriculum in your class. And not the, we're staying away from study abroad and all of those other like super cool things. We're narrowing it down to focus specifically on what can we do in our classrooms. And the benefits of specifically focusing on internationalizing your curriculum in your class is that, or in classes overall in a community college setting, is that it can maximize the reach of international programming and it's cost effective for both the institution and the learner. Many aspects of international programming are out of reach for the average community college student because they're really expensive. For instance, study abroad, um, or participating in a Model United Nations conference. It Those are very expensive programs. Unless your institution fully funds those programs, like taking students to New York to compete at the United Nations with other colleges and universities around the world, unless your institution fully funds that or provides very, very generous scholarships for study abroad, international education or international programming can be a very, very, very exclusive and gatekeep a lot of the vast majority of community college students from participating in some of those higher level and more expensive programs. Um, with adding global elements to your class, students have already paid for the class. They don't have to pay anymore. It's highly cost effective for students themselves to give them international exposure, give them global exposure, right? So all of these things are extremely important for us. Um, and it's cost effective for the student. It's also cost effective for the institution because there's not another program that they have to pay for or fund. The content is already included in your class, and so that's really nice. Another issue that anybody who's part of it, who's a student organization advisor or trying to get anything done on campus with students these days knows is that our campuses are looking a little vacant, and this isn't just an issue with our campus, but it's across our region. I know for sure with my colleagues at other institutions, they're struggling to get students involved coming to campus to do things. And so there could be we love to have events, like we love to have all kinds of cool events on campus, but sometimes that's out of reach for those things are out of reach for our students too, because they have to work during that time, or they're in class during those times, or they have to take care of their family during those times. Going to college today, as many of us know, because we're frontline with our students, is very different possibly than when we went to school, living on campus, immersed in a 24-hour, 7 days a week campus experience where it was very easy to just walk to the quad and partake in International Education Day uh, festival or something like that. That's very difficult for our students to do. So including global content in your class makes it easier to access for our students, and it's easier for our institution to accomplish goals of international education. Also, it's professionally enriching. We get something out of this too. It's really fun to be able to create new content for your class, and you learn something at the same time. Maybe you've never done this before. So it's also a lot of fun to do. And it takes a little time. There's a lead up to it, but you don't have to do it all at once either. and it's nice. It makes something, maybe, at the community college, we don't get to teach as many preps as the universities do. So if you wanted to enrich one of your classes with international content, that makes it nice. That makes it nice for you too, and it's fun, right? It's actually a fun thing to do, and it's fun doing the research on your own. It's fun delivering the content. Students actually really enjoy hearing about various different global concepts in your classroom. All right. So just quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but my personal experience with international education, my own studies, my own education is highly, highly international, with anthropology and international studies as my undergraduate coursework, and as my graduate coursework in international studies, anthropology, international development, and comparative politics, and then myself participating in a ton of study abroad programs. So personally, this is very important to me, and how it's enriched my life and made me, I believe, a better person, for and academic, for engaging in international education myself. And then professionally, I have experience implementing programs, specifically internationalizing course curriculum, uh, student organizations, and all kinds of other fun things like that. So this is the background that I'm coming from and why I love it so much. So let's now get into, like, what is this stuff, right? Like, how do we implement this into our classroom? So Alamo College, in the Alamo College system in San Antonio, has, as well as many other community colleges and universities, have a pretty well developed international programming, and they have a global pathway where students can engage in all different types of international programming, and they have what they call global competencies. So this is just an example of one college here in Texas. I wanted to give a regional example, and so their competencies include global awareness, global perspective, and global engagement, and then a variety of different elements in those. This isn't, each institution would probably uh, uh, you know pick competencies that would fit their institution. So this is just an example. These might not necessarily fit with us at Alvin Community College, but they're interesting things just to kind of get us thinking about, like, what is it that we want our students to be able to do, or learn, or accomplish when we are delivering international or global content in our classrooms. So Alamo talks about knowledge of the interconnections between local and global issues, understanding one's own cultural norms and expectations, so doing some introspective work, and then understanding global dynamics through continuous learning and reflection. Uh, in the global perspective, collaborate with people from diverse cultures with understanding, respect, and compassion. Use global and cultural perspectives to problem solve, and adapt to intercultural, excuse me, intercultural social or work settings, and engage, global engagement, a deep understanding of a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These things are probably tweaked, as a lot of us know, that we're under kind of some different regulations from state now, with some DEI stuff, but also having open, appropriate, and effective intercultural interactions, and a sense of local and global social responsibility. So this is just an example from Alamo Colleges. And this is something that they set up. This is an example of a variety of different disciplines, right? So from accounting all the way down, I just picked a few, right? And what you can do in your discipline to include some type of global content. So some type of international problem, a critical issue, global competency, just like they had listed, course learning outcome that you're going to expect from that, right? And then also some examples of classroom activities. So here with accounting, you can see comparing and contrasting financial states of multinational companies. This is extremely important, right? Giving the interconnectedness of our economies today. The course learning outcome, awareness of the scope, magnitude, and range of multinational businesses globally, and then implementing active learning strategies, assessing and using a quiz format. But it can be all kinds of different things. This is an American Sign Language class, right? So some very interesting examples of how you can introduce a global perspective in a American Sign Language class, cross-cultural understanding, world geography, world history, right? Achieve a higher level of cross-cultural awareness and understanding of a specific geographic area of the world. Have students analyze the use of American Sign Language in different countries and present their findings to the class, assess presentations using a peer review process. So there's all kinds of stuff. Biology, really interesting. You can, this is an example of global deforestation. Um, have it where students would have an awareness of the problems associated with global deforestation, and then coming up with a list of possible solutions for that. So these are just, very a few of examples from other disciplines where you can implement some type of global or international perspective or content in your classes. They also have a global learning course worksheet uh, that you can kind of fill out to help you do it. This is just an example of what they do. So you have you can pick one of their, they professors pick one of their global competencies, and then you as the instructor come up with your global learning outcome. And this form just kind of helps you kind of nail that down. And by the way, I have no affiliation to the Alamo colleges by any means. They just have very good open access resources on their website. So they're very open. They're very transparent with their process, which is very nice of them to do. So just this is a nice way to be able to set up what you're going to be doing in your class to get your mind to get you to give you a template on how you might want to do this. So you have the assessment method that you might use, the assessment of the activity that supports the global learning outcome, the evaluation process, active learning activities that support that global learning outcome, and then any type of learning materials that you would need to support that GLO, and then use of assessment results for improving student learning. So this is a nice little template that I think is super handy if you want to do these types of things in your classes. Some natural fits. So there are a lot of classes out there that are natural fits for global content, internationalizing your curriculum. It's already there, right? The content is already in your classes. So for instance, the language classes, obviously global perspective, learning languages that are used in other countries, but also used here in the United States as well. Pardon me. Um, art appreciation classes, art classes, obviously spanning the globe with various different types of art coming from various different countries around the world. World civilization classes and history, world geography classes, Mexican American history, government class, our government classes, we even have Mexican American politics. It's hard to make that class. It's hard to get that class to make, but even in the government departments, we have that, and then a bunch of other ones. How about y'all? Can anybody think I'll give a shout out here for who might have a have a discipline that you think is a natural fit? Anybody want to chime in? We can talk about it at the end. Okay. All right, so now I want to give you an example of internationalizing the curriculum in two government classes. I'm going to be going more in depth with federal government. So on the right hand side of the screen, we have the SLO, the government SLOs as set forth by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And then on the right hand side, I've just given a very brief list of items that could fit the SLO. So I like to align whenever I'm introducing content. I like to align it with our student learning objectives. And coming from my comparative politics background, I like to introduce elements of of comparative politics. And so looking at political systems, every US government textbook in like the first chapter talks about different forms of political systems. So for instance, so it's already there. Some of this stuff is already built into our content, but you can actually go further. So political systems, for instance, authoritarian regimes, totalitarian regimes, constitutional regimes, giving examples, going further in depth about examples of a totalitarian regime, such as North Korea, examples of authoritarian regimes, uh, um, uh, Iran, Saudi Arabia, uh, Singapore, other countries around the world that are authoritarian regimes, and going into, picking a couple of them and going more in depth with those types of regimes. So not just saying this is what a regime is, but actually going in and giving more in depth and doing more in depth development of those examples. Political parties, looking at political parties across the globe, not just here in the United States, but we have a whole chapter in U.S. and Texas government on political parties, and you can go in and have students research political parties in other countries. Constitutions, comparing and contrasting the U.S. Constitution with the constitutions of other governments. International economics. We have a chapter on economics policy, and you can go further into international economics and looking at political economy, which is also part of political science, looking at the political implications of economic relationships with other countries, and stuff like that. So all kinds of really interesting things that can be done there. And then international relations is a big subfield of political science, looking at the United States, the foreign policy of the United States, but what's the foreign policy of other countries towards the United States? That's quite interesting information. International governmental organizations, or IGOs, like the United Nations, uh, the European Union, there are the Organization of African States, all kinds of different international organizations that are very important actors in foreign policy. You can also use non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, like to back up or support other content area, other content in U.S. government. Specifically, we've got a whole chapter on interest groups. You can use examples of international interest groups like Greenpeace or Amnesty International, or the International Red Cross, those types of things to introduce international or global perspectives, global content in your classrooms. And, SACS loves it when we align our content with our SLOs. They like to see that, and so having that in there always makes SACS happy as well. This is an example of content that I have used in my class, and an example of uh, a paper and presentation that I have them do, and it's a group project. It's a comparative country group assignment where students are grouped together and assigned a country, where and then as the course goes along that semester, they research their country's political system, that they've been assigned, as we're covering those same things in class. For U.S. government. So the type of political system, what type of political system do they have? Do they have a federal style system? Do they have a confederal style system? Do they have a unitary system? These are specific political science concepts that they will be looking up for their country, as we do for the United States. What type of legislative branch do they have? What do the different branches of government look like? Do they have a separated system, what we call a separated system, like we have here in the United States, or do they have a fused system, a presidential system versus a parliamentary system? What does their electoral system look like? There's all different types of ways to run elections, and they'll look at those. And then they'll also look at current policy issues that are going on in those countries. So essentially, what they're doing is they're following the curriculum The same type of thing that we're doing for US government, they're doing with their countries over the course of the semester. And then at the end of the semester, they present their findings and act as junior foreign policy advisors to the president on what type of political, or excuse me, foreign policy position we should have for these countries. And it's always really neat. And what's so cool when I do this with them is that they will see something in the news about the country they've been assigned, and they come back to class. They're like, "Hey, I saw this about my country on TV, and like I knew about that country. Like I knew what they were talking about." The most recent assignment I've done this with is the BRICS, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. There's actually more countries that are included in the BRICS, but these are big up and coming countries that are very important on the international scene politically and economically. So we go in depth with those. Other times I've just assigned them like random countries like Kazakhstan. And I one of my students saw their country on TV, and like while watching the news with her dad, and she was like, I understood exactly what they were talking about. So they actually get really excited about this. And you can even do this with Texas government. Like, how do you do, you can go further in depth with the Spanish colonial system, French colonial system, looking at subnational governments of other countries. You could go into Mexico's federal system because they have a federal system just like the United States. You can look at Texas trade partners. Mexico is our main trade partner. They're extremely important for the economy of Texas, as is China and Canada, and align those. You can do all of this stuff and align it with your SLOs. You can even go further, and like my country comparison uh, group project hits all the core curriculum objectives. And again, we know that like SACS loves this kind of stuff. So it's not just it's internationalizing your curriculum isn't just making for a cool class, but it's also supporting the programming and the institutional goals of your college. There are some challenges here, right? There's some challenges. Time. It takes some time to do this, but you don't have to do it all at once, right? And you get to pick out what you want to do with it. You get to pick what you want to put in your class, how much you want to put in, um, what fits for you. You're the content expert. You get to make these decisions. Watch out for content pitfalls though, because you want to make sure that you have current information, and you want to try to stay away from some outdated stereotypes or concepts. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence on for your research when trying to add elements into your curriculum. Um, so I'm going to leave it at that, and then that's my last slide. And I would like to hear from y'all, right, on how this works out for you guys, or some ideas that you might have in your classroom. I can how much time do we have, Thomas?
We have until 10:45 and it is 10:23. Don't make me do the math.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break folks in. Hopefully this works. I tried it with my PTK students the other night, and um, uh, break y'all into groups. And so what I would like y'all to do in your groups is to see what you can add into your curriculum for your specific classes. What are some ideas that you have that could really add to your curriculum that might be that could be of a global perspective? And y'all are the content experts, right, for your classes. So brainstorm a little bit for that, and then we'll come back, and I'll give y'all about 10 minutes to do so. And then I'll pull y'all out of your groups, and then we can discuss it. All right, so give me a second to set up these teams if it will let me do that. Let's see. It may or may not let me do this because I don't know if I'm the yeah, this one might not let me. But anyways, I'll give you it's not letting me break people out. But what I'll do
I can do that for you,
oh,
Amy.
great.
There are just a few of us though,
Yeah,
so but I can
maybe
do
two
that.
each,
You want to do two each?
2 or 3 each. Yeah, either way.
Okay. All right. Well, let just briefly give me a second and I'll
Okay.
make that happen, okay?
Okay, great.
Sorry about that, everyone. I was having a little bit of trouble with the assigning of the rooms. I've
Oh,
never
that's
done it
okay.
that way before.
Yeah, I had some issues with that previously too. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right. So are we in the rooms or no?
I believe everyone is in the same room at this
Okay.
point. There are one, two, three, four, five of us left at this point. I think we should just
Yeah,
continue the conversation from
perfect.
there.
I think that's great. I think that's absolutely great. So I'll for y'all, y'all just want to chime in and think of some different ways that you can include international content in your classes?
Laura, you want to go ahead and go and give us your feedback, please?
Sure. So it's fairly simple. Incorporated in into my curriculum is already an international course. Um, and then, as I'll talk about in another meeting here on Across the Curriculum with Charlie Bevel, I did an abroad trip in Ireland and going to incorporate all the specifics into that specific course curriculum. Um, so they're kind of easy for me because it's food and food is around the world anyway. So we plan on also taking students starting in 2025 to some of these abroad places. I think the next one will be France, kind of the hub of where culinary begins anyway. So it's once again, very easy to incorporate the internationalizing of the curriculum into my specific curriculum for food.
That's awesome. So tell me about the Ireland trip. That sounds really neat.
I'm not going to go into too much detail because here at 10:55 we have one as well. But Charlie Bevel asked if this would be something I'd be interested in. It was their first culinary tour in Ireland. We, I guess, previously worked with the same group before, but this one was specific to culinary. So there were lots of different colleges, anywhere from deans to chefs to faculty members teaching an array of the industry, the hospitality industry, and even some students on this one, not too many this time since it was the first. And so we just kind of mapped out Ireland, all the different regions and areas, and traveled and ate and went to distilleries and obviously castles and
Oh
all this
wow.
other kind of stuff as well. The students that were present absolutely loved it and fully intend on going to them in 2025 and further. Some of them have already been to like China to compete and stuff like that. But this one was just a specific tour of the country itself and its cuisine as it relates to food and beverage. So that was it was just a wonderful experience and
That's
a
so exciting.
networking. What's that?
That's so exciting.
It was wonderful. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's great. And then going to France, that what amazing opportunities. That is so cool. I'm sure your students are going to be so excited to be able to do all of those things. I know I would have been.
Absolutely. We already have students saving for it.
Yay, that's great. Anyone else would like to share some ideas? Yes, Shane.
Hi. I'm not sure how relevant this will be, but it's really a simple thing. Within history classes, I think history kind of lends itself to internationalizing the curriculum in terms of bringing in international perspectives. I know you had Mexican American history listed as one of your courses. Taking down my hand. All right. So, but like one of the even with many historians, there's a tendency to remain really focused on what you're talking about. So if you're talking about the American Revolution, well, we're looking at what's happening in the American Revolution, not looking at France or England or even Haiti, right? And how Haiti becomes inspired by the revolution. And Thomas Jefferson limits trade with Haiti because of racism, and they had formed this first Black Republic in the Western Hemisphere, which was the first successful slave rebellion as well. So while one thing I try to do then is, while we're having this lecture or discussion about a particular topic, we're always, if I can, I try to put events in context outside of the national boundaries, right? Looking at how an event influences another event, or how an event in history was itself influenced by people or circumstances outside of the nation's borders. Did you hear that?
Yes, I accidentally hit my camera, and I don't want y'all to see my sick self right now.
Okay.
But yes, I heard that. That was great. That was awesome. Yeah, so many opportunities there in the history classes to put just what was what was going on in the United States at that time into context, into a broader context of global history. Anyone else would like to share? Go ahead.
Yeah. I like to I mean, I clearly I'm in government too, right? But I have like kind of a similar strategy of taking opportunities to compare to other systems, to other, political cultures, and really giving students really the like space, right, to discuss, how it's different from where they grew up. So for instance, in this semester, I have a student in one of my classes who grew up in Singapore. So, every opportunity I can to take that in other places that students have been or are familiar with, like to compare, like, hey, this is how it is here, but this is not the only way to do it, and kind of giving that opportunity for comparison. It was kind of started a lot of cool conversations with, you know, in the class, and I think really good opportunity, and probably, using some of these strategies to incorporate that more will be really helpful for me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like you touched on something that it doesn't like have to be some type of formal thing that you can do that. You can do a more of a formal process for your class. But also just that really cool back and forth conversations that we have in our classes that you can bring up spontaneously, or obviously having it, you can have it planned too, but kind of on the fly interesting discussions really relating to who your students are, right? Because our students also have global backgrounds, have international, many of our students have international backgrounds, and I think making content more meaningful to them. And that's like really what, we always try to do is somehow try to make content more meaningful for them to get them interested in and what it is, interested in the learning objectives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? Charlie, would you like to share? We'd love to hear your
Yeah, I kept
thoughts,
looking for
Charlie.
my mic. I'm like, where's my mic? I couldn't find it. Yeah, so I mean, even in the English composition classes, and I'm talking about the basic core stuff in math classes. In the core classes, we all have a writing component. So in those courses, it's easy to make sure that the writing component has an international spin on it. Um, in the composition classes, one of the things that I've been doing is when the students have to do research, part of their research has to be international. So let's say they're doing a report on something that's happening in the US. They also have to look at that same topic from an international, with an international lens, so that it's either someone from another country is looking at us specifically, or they're looking at the same topic in a different way. So they're bringing that information in. So like I said, any course can be internationalized. Some of them can be completely internationalized, since you can get that I, um, but we haven't gotten there yet. We're working toward that. So, but yeah, you can bring in the internationalization in any class. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like sometimes we get stuck in thinking, oh, well, my class is just this, so it doesn't have anything to do with international education. And like, man, we can make like we can make all I firmly believe we can make all classes like there can be some type of international aspect in anybody's class, and it should, be open to anyone who, might want to do that. And Thomas, do you have any thoughts for any of your classes? I know you're our moderator here, but any ideas?
Well, Charlie, really, I teach English as well. So what Charlie said applies. Really, any topic, mostly my students choose their own topics, could be looked at from an international perspective. And I think that that's something that could be really actually easily incorporated into the essay assignments for English. But that's really all I have to add.
Great, thank you so much. Awesome. Well, I think this is great. Thanks, guys, for hanging in, and thanks for giving me some grace with my hopefully my voice. My voice is about to is about to go out. But I think this is really neat. I'm excited. I love this stuff, and as far as putting neat and fun things into our curriculum, it can be done in a more formal way, and it can be done informally too. I think it's nice to be able to be flexible like that. And I really appreciate y'all signing up for or coming in into hearing my presentation. And then I highly encourage everybody to also see Laura and Charlie's presentation today too. I'll be in there in a little bit as well, because they do a broader perspective on international programming than what this presentation did. So I'm excited to go to be a part of their to participate in their presentation as well. So thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys around on campus.